Hey everybody, today is December 18, 2023, and today we're going to talk about the price of Bitcoin and where I see Bitcoin headed in January 2024. Before we begin, please read this disclaimer and you can pause this video as you read it. Okay, just like last month, I am making this video, excuse me, a little earlier this month because of course next week is the holiday season. It is Christmas and of course the New Year, and I thought I'd be pretty busy with friends and family, so I thought I'd just make the video earlier this month. But anyways, yeah, this video I'm going to cover what I think the price of Bitcoin is headed for the remainder of the month and also the month of January, with our next video going to come out in late January, of course, right? So in the last video we left off somewhere over here, and I said that we had a nice run up higher, and I believe I said that I think this month, December, we're probably going to consolidate, build a base of like a ascending triangle, and then push up higher in the middle of the month, right? But what ended up happening is we ended up having a nice rally, right? And part of that is that the Federal Reserve hinted that they're perhaps going to start to cut rates, right? Or at least they probably weren't going to raise rates anymore. At least that's what the market believes. Jerome Powell didn't definitively say that he's not going to raise rates anymore, but he's sort of like hinting that like this is probably the peak, right? And so with the federal funds effective rate at 5.33, but the CPI also coming out earlier this month saying that seeing the trend go down, right? We had a bit of a spike in inflation in the summer of this year, but we've since the early fall, we've since been coming down, right? And so the market is believing that the Fed probably will not raise rates anymore, and that we might actually start to cut rates in Q1 or Q2 of next year, right? And so this is something that we've been talking about. If you watch earlier videos this year, is that I said that I don't think we're going to see rate cuts this year, but we probably will see discussion of rate cuts next year. So everything is going to plan, and of course that led to a huge rally because with the Fed not raising interest rates and considering cutting rates, that is going to lead to more tailwinds. It's going to allow the stock market more room to push up higher, right? We already saw a huge rally from the October lows, right, earlier this year, massive rally. So I do think that is going to lead to more tailwinds that could to push Bitcoin even higher, right? But anyways, that led to the initial rally earlier this month, right? And yeah, so as long as inflation continues the trend down, so the next CPI report is going to be January of 2011. Sorry, January 11th to 2024, right? So next month, and what we want to see is the CPI trend continue down lower to perhaps 3.0 or below, right? I think if it goes down to the 2 handle, I think that'd be amazing, and we'll probably see a huge rally in the stock market, which of course will probably lead to a huge rally in crypto markets, right? Bitcoin, right here, we're talking about in particular. But also at the same time, we've had a spectacular rally, right? And just like I discussed in my stock video this day, you can watch the stock video. I'm about to release it around the same time as this video. We've had multiple weekly consecutive green candles, right? We've already had 7 in a row, and if we continue this trend, we'll probably have 8 in a row, right? And I discussed in that video, in the stock video, that let me just get a cleaner chart. It's very rare that we've had this many green candles in a row, right? It's very, very rare if you look back. And so I think the probability that we're about to hit like a bit of a pullback is a lot higher than if we just continue to rip up higher, right? Now I could be wrong, but I'm just trying to be realistic, right? I mean, look at the stock market, right? The RSI, let's go back to SPY. The RSI is in overbought territory, so we just have to be realistic. Of course, it'll be great if this thing can continue to go up. I'm pretty much all long. I have no short positions, okay? So of course, I'm benefiting from this spectacular rally that we've seen since the low of October in the stock market. This is S&P 500, ETF, SPY. But at the same time, we have to be realistic, right? Same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has also benefited from this rally in the stock market, right? Bitcoin is seen as a risk-on asset. So when the stocks start rallying, Bitcoin is rallying even harder, right? And we had basically 8 green candles in a row. Although we did print a red candle yesterday on the Sunday close. However, things are still looking pretty good, right? We seem to be basically waking up and perhaps trying to hit above 45,000. But like I said, on my Twitter page, you can follow me on Twitter, EddieLux_ or x.com. Bitcoin continues a strong rally but faces resistance above 45,000, right? And we discussed this. Why is 45,000 such an important level, right? Well, first of all, 45,000 is a Fibonacci resistance level, right? This line here is resistance level, and that is around 45,000. Let's zoom out to the weekly chart, right? 45,000 was also a local high over here in earlier 2022 before we plunged even lower. It was also support level when we had our pullbacks above, when we hit 65,000, came down, right? Again, also major levels of support over here, but when they were broken, we just plunged lower, right? Same thing with 30,000. It took us time to break through 30,000, right? Because it was such strong support level here, here, and over here. When we finally broke it, we just plunged, right, down to 15,000. Then we came up early this year. It took us a while to break through 30,000, but when we did, we had a huge rally, right? So I do think that 45,000 is also going to be strong resistance, right? For those reasons, because it was previous support during the 2021 bull market, and then we broke it, and also because this is a Fibonacci level, just like 30,000 is a Fibonacci level. So, like I said, I do think we're going to face resistance above 45,000, and just technically speaking, we are overbought, right? This is a weekly chart. The weekly chart is overbought, right? And usually it's healthy for the oscillators to come down and reset closer to 50, right? In a bull market, when the weekly oscillators come down to 50, that's usually a good time to like scoop up, right? This is like we want to buy the dip, right? And we have an incredible rally over the last couple weeks, right? So I'm not saying that I think Bitcoin's going to crash. Just like I think the stock market is probably going to consolidate, chop sideways, build a base, right? I said this on my stock video, and then push up higher in January. So that's my prediction for the stock market in January. I think Bitcoin's going to do something very similar, right? I think that Bitcoin is probably going to chop sideways below the 45. It's probably going to make some attempts to break the 45 Fibonacci level, $45,000 to $50,000 range, or this Fibonacci level around 46, 47,000, right? But it's probably going to be rejected. But every time it comes down, we want to make sure we're making higher lows, form ascending triangles, and then push up higher, right? So this is sort of my prediction that I thought we were going to have this month. Instead, we end up ripping higher, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? If we do something sort of like this, where we just try to break through, eventually when we break through, we see a strong rally, right? So maybe we can do something like here and then break through. But I do think that eventually we will reach a point where we consolidate for a couple months. Like just like we had an impulse move up, consolidated for a while, and then had another impulse move up. I think we're going to see something very similar. Probably going to work very hard to break 45,000, break above it, but then just consolidate for a while. And this also goes back to my thesis that we are seeing something similar to what we saw in the 2016 to 2017 rally, right? And this also is a continuation of the Twitter thread that I've been writing since July, right? Bitcoin price action now resembles 2016 to 2017 bull market. Slow and steady, will history repeat? I basically said that I thought that this year the impulse move up in a sideways consolidation looked very similar to the impulse move up in late 2015, early 2016. And if we see that, we might see basically a certain pattern where we have another impulse move up sideways, and then every time we go up, we basically become more and more parabolic into the 2025 or 2017 in this case, but 4-year cycle, 2025 would be where we expect the next peak to be, right? Just go down here. So if we look at a clean chart, so you can see how we had an impulse move higher. Then we went consolidate for a while. Impulse move high, consolidate. And every time we have this, it just keeps going more and more parabolic. So if this is the case, we might be on our second leg, right? Impulse move higher, consolidate, impulse move higher, consolidate, and then just going more and more parabolic until 2025. If we are to believe the 4-year cycle, late 2025 should probably be the peak, right? We are going to halving next year, which could provide another tailwind, positive catalyst to push the price higher. But at least in the short term, I do think that we are getting to that overbought territory. If you look at the fear and greed index is in greed. It's not an extreme greed yet, so it's not like this is not like, oh, you got to start taking profits, but because there is still room to run higher, right? But we are approaching that area where all the easy money, at least in this run, has been already made. So the risk reward is probably not as great as it was if you bought the breakout. Like, let me just get back to our so I think as we approach, so basically my thesis is what I said in my Twitter space. anything above 45,000 and 50,000, I think it's going to be strong resistance. But once we break that, I think we're going to make a run for it. But I do think that it's going to be a lot of rejections around this level, right? Especially the Fibonacci resistance level. But as long as we continue to consolidate, absorb supply, chop up, we're probably going to chop sideways for a while, but we wanted to make as many higher lows as possible and just try to chop through this resistance level and then push up higher, right? But I am foreseeing a lot of rejections around 45 to 50,000 range, right? I can see people trying to make a run for it and then getting rejected. So, but as long as we hold at least 40,000 bare minimum, right? But we want to hold 40 to 45,000 levels as support for as long as possible. And I think that at that point the bears are going to be discouraged from trying to short this thing, right? So, but overall, I am very optimistic about 2024, especially with possible cuts in interest rates by the Fed. If CPI continues downtrend, right? We don't want to see this spike up. If we come down to see the rates come down to 3.0 or below, I do see Bitcoin and the stock market going up a lot higher, right? So let's look at some other data. This is the total hash rate for Bitcoin, of course, looking very strong, just surpassing 500 million terahash per second. So looking very good. A lot of miners working hard, right? This is a 2-year multiplier. Historically, when we're above this green line, that's bullish, right? This looks very similar to 2015. This is why I keep recalling 2016, 2017, right? Because the pattern looks very similar. We have an impulse move, sideways, consolidation, impulse move higher. But as long as we're above the green line, that gives us a strong signal that we are probably in the beginning or the middle of a bull rally, right? We spent a lot of time below this green line, more than we did in 2015. But I've been saying when we were below this line that it was probably historically a good time or a cheap time to buy Bitcoin, right? But now we're out of it. But we're nowhere near the red zone or the reddish orange zone, right? So there's still a lot of room to run higher. So that's looking good. Pi cycle top indicator generally tells you when to exit. It has a pretty accurate rate of calling the top or near the top, right? But this also gives you a good idea of when the bottom is in a bear market, right? In the bear market, we tend to fall below this orange line and stay below it for a while. But once we cross above the orange line, as long as we stay above, we might retest it a couple times, like over here, 2016, 2017, and of course, 2019 to 2020, right? Where we retested this orange line a couple times going below. But as long as we hold it, this is generally a sign that the market is bullish, right? So we came down here and we tested this level several times this year, but eventually we are holding above this orange line, so we continue to move up higher, right? But also, this green line also says that during the bull run, even though it might not be the cycle top, the 4-year cycle top, it's still strong resistance level, right? Every time we hit the green line, so this is 2016, this is 2019, we tend to pull back a little bit, right? And we're getting close to that level. That level is still around 50,000, and I said that 45 to 50,000 is strong resistance. So if the market does make an impulse move up to 50,000, it's going to hit this green line, and that could be a sign that we're probably going to pull back a little bit, right? And that's why I said that any run, we might, as we get closer to this Fibonacci resistance level, right, this red line, I think I can see like somebody trying to make a run for it, making a huge long position and only to get rejected, right? But as long as we defend for at least 40 to 45,000 level, right, and we build that base, higher lows, we can try to make a run for it one more time and then push up higher. But that could take a while. I could take the rest of the month and January, right? But yeah, going back to other charts, golden ratio multiplier says that if we look at the history, as long as we stay above historical patterns, right? As long as we stay above this yellow-orange line, we're in a positive bullish trend, right? And we'll just one by one overtake these lines, right? And these lines give us an idea of where the local top could be. So if we look at this, we're basically touching this green line, right? In our previous cycles, once you touch the green line, we're probably in the beginnings of a bull run, right? That could last until 2025. So this is another chart that's telling us that the bull market looks strong, and we are probably in the early innings of a massive bull market that could probably peak in 2025, right? Bitcoin Cycle Master, very similar, another multi-line chart that's telling us that, that's telling us that we are possibly still in the early innings of a bull market that could last until 2025, right? Similarly, we're touching this purple line, which is where we were in June of 2016. Also purple line in 2019, right? But every time we hit the purple line, we tend to pull back a little bit. So that could be, again, 45 to 50,000. That area, around that area, we could be hitting resistance level, right? Are we peaked closer to 45,000, right? And this could be like, we're probably in the area where we're starting to consolidate a little bit. But again, like I said, as long as we absorb supply, hold 40,000, I do think that Bitcoin eventually will make a run and break above the 45 to 50,000 level, right? And lastly, we'll look at the forecast tool, which combines different data points that have historically been good indicators of tops and bottoms. And this just gives us an idea, superimposing different indicators of where the bottom and the top of the Bitcoin market cycle is. So if you see this green and yellow or / orange sign, or yellow, tends to act as the bottom when Bitcoin hits it, right? And it seems like we already hit that bottom. And we are currently in the middle of the green and purple line. Middle of the green and purple line here, or over here, is the same area in the last 2 cycles, where in last, I guess, all the way back to 2012, if you want to go back that far, right? So again, this is another chart that's showing that perhaps we're in the beginnings of a bull market that could last until 2025, right? And we still have a lot of potentially a lot more gains to be had, right? We're still pretty early. All these indicators are telling us that Bitcoin is right now still bullish. We're possibly in the beginnings of a strong bull rally that could last until 2025, right? No guarantees, but I mean, I'm just going based off the objective, what these charts are telling me, right? So everything's looking pretty good. Fear and greed index, this is stock market. For crypto market, fear and greed is in greed, but still has a bit of room to run until it hits extreme greed, right? But I would say crucially for the stock market and the crypto markets is that we want to see inflation come down, and we're going to get that on January 11th of next year, 2024. And if inflation continues to go down, I think the Fed will finally announce that they're ready to cut rates, possibly sometime in Q1 or Q2, and that's definitely going to lead to a rally in the stock market. And of course, that'll be really bullish for risk-on assets like crypto markets, right? Like Bitcoin. So, just to summarize, I am optimistic about the markets, about the price of Bitcoin going up higher. Of course, I'm happy to see the price continue to rip up this high, as I am very exposed in the crypto markets and spot crypto and also Bitcoin mining stocks. And my prediction for the end of the year is I think we're going to continue to chop sideways for the month of December. In January, I do think that we're going to try to make a run for this Fibonacci resistance level around, just above 45,000. But like I said, I do think that resistance from 45 to 50,000 is going to be very strong, right? Like I said, previous resistance level tends to act as strong resistance level as well, right? Just like 30,000 held as strong resistance level because we held this as support and then we broke it. So of course this year when we came up to try to break through 30,000, it took us a long time, right? It took us several months. And similarly, we're getting close to this Fibonacci level around 45 to 50,000, which also acted as support, right, in the previous bull run in 2021. And then we broke it. We broke it several times, and this time we couldn't hold it again in 2022, right? And we just plunged all the way down to 15,000. So I do think that 45,000 is going to be another resistance level, very similar, probably similar to this level, right? See how we came up to this Fibonacci level and went sideways for a while. This is our next Fibonacci level. We might see this go sideways for a while before pushing up higher, right? So I do think but that doesn't mean we might not. That doesn't mean we won't see any like people bold bulls trying to push up higher, right? But I think we're gonna see a lot of rejections. But what we want to see is consolidation, absorbing supply, but also higher lows, and just absorbing as much supply until we basically just remove any selling pressure and just push up higher and discourage the bears from trying to short this market, right? So again, January, I do think that we will probably see the market go sideways, build a base, and then push up higher. And what I want to see for next year is, I believe, probably going to go sideways for a while, just like we did over here, around 30,000 level, right? Consolidate, absorb supply, and then push up higher, right? I will say this. If the Bitcoin ETF is approved, and I still think there's a lot of resistance from Chairman Gary Gensler, but if he does, by some miracle, approve the ETFs sometime earlier in Q1, I do think that that'll be the catalyst to push up higher. And yeah, but I don't really see any real headwinds pushing the price of Bitcoin down. I could be wrong, but I think that right now we have more tailwinds than headwinds, right? So again, things to look out for is the CPI report in January, and also the Fed decision and what Jerome Powell will say regarding interest rate cuts, potential interest rate cuts in 2024. We also want to see if the SEC is going to approve spot ETF for Bitcoin, right? And of course, we want to see what the stock market does in reaction to inflation. And also, January is going to be earnings season for Q4, and so that could also provide more positive tailwinds, especially with the whole generative AI and a lot of the big companies, of the Microsofts, Nvidias, Google. They're all incorporating generative AI, so that could really get people to be optimistic and want to invest more, which could lead the market to rally even harder, which of course will bring on risk on assets like Bitcoin to go higher. So that is it for my analysis for December. I'll come back in late January for the February 2024 update. I hope everybody has happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and thank you guys for supporting and watching my channel this year. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Appreciate all your support. Thank you again, and have a great day.